Vodniks have a saying. Russia has only two allies, its army and its navy. This is a hint that Russia is not only an occupier on land, but also the mistress of the seas. The idea that Muscovy is a great maritime power is just as much a myth as the claim that Lenin died from the effects of an assassination attempt and not from syphilis. Almost the entire naval history of Russia is a story of defeats and humiliations.
I am furious about what happened to the flagship of the Black Sea Fleet, the Moskva. I'm just furious.
But let's take it from the top. The mad Peter I built a fleet on the swamps. He traveled to Europe and learned that the vast expanse of the sea could be used for much more than just washing underwear.
Since early morning, under the sundial on the Sukona River, washboards are being set up. Every spring, the residents of Ust-Uzha ask the city administration a question that really concerns them. When will the washboards be set up?
The Russian Navy only appeared in the Black Sea even later only, at the end of the 18th century. Let me remind you, Ukrainian Cossack flotillas were already conducting military operations from Crimea to the Bosphorus in the 16th and 17th centuries, and they are still doing so successfully today. Back then, our small kikers successfully burned down huge Turkish galleys. Now our small drones are sinking the occupiers' ships.
The moment the strike was shown by military correspondent Andriy Tsaplienko Telegram channel,
Until the mid-19th century, the Russian fleet fought the Turkish fleet with varying degrees of success. Both fleets, however, were quite backward and ineffective, so neither was able to gain any truly significant advantage.
You really know how to do it. Simply put, you indeed do.
It's quite funny that this very historical period is widely considered to be the most heroic and significant in the entire history of the Russian Navy. To this day, Russian sailors are made to kiss the skull of Admiral Ushakov. You didn't imagine it. It's the 21st century, Russia, and people are kissing the rotten bones of a 200-year-old grandpa. Let's hope at least he's salty from the seawater.
And since when have you been craving something salty like that?
But the glorious golden age of the Russian Navy didn't last very long. In 1853, powerful Britain and formidable France truly real naval power sided with Turkey. And that's precisely when the web-footed perch started having some truly real and significant problems.
Brothers, all hands on deck!
At the start of the Crimean War, the Russian Black Sea Fleet had a significant numerical advantage over the enemy. But the brave Russian admirals never took their ships out to sea. They preferred to heroically barricade themselves in Sevastopol and bravely peer through their spyglasses. For those who don't know, the much-hyped Admiral Nakhimov died during the defense of Sevastopol, but not at sea on a ship. He was killed in a trench. He poked his head out to see what the British were up to and took a bullet to the forehead.
If it's a bullet to the forehead, then it's a bullet to the forehead.
They say Nakhimov's last words were, "They're shooting very accurately today." A first-class prophet. So while the Muscovites were hiding out on shore, the Allies brought up their ships and said, "Russian sprats, surrender." The barefoot ones had zero chance. The thing is, the Russian fleet was made of wood and powered by sails. But the British and French were already using armored steamships. Because Europe had gone through the Industrial Revolution, while in Russia they were still trading serfs for dogs at a rate of 5 yamelias for one sharik.
What? I'm worse than other people?
As a result, the unparalleled fleet didn't take part in a single battle throughout the entire war. And on the 10th of September, 1854, it scuttled itself in Sevastopol. Russia was defeated and humiliated. As a result of the war, it was completely forbidden from having a navy in the Black Sea. But Russians wouldn't be Russians if they didn't twist everything around and turn a shameful defeat into the heroic defense of Sevastopol.
Naturally, they won because the forces were truly unequal. But the genuine admiration the French, as true warriors, felt for the Russians who steadfastly refused to surrender even in this difficult situation was deeply sincere.
Huh? Why aren't you laughing? Yeah, funny. You didn't get it, did you? This is Russia.
Getting beaten up in the small Black Sea wasn't enough for the Russians, so they went off to get thrashed in the ocean. The phrase "a short victorious war" was coined by the Russians at the beginning of the 20th century, when they decided to challenge Japan in the Pacific Ocean. Remember, there was also the cruiser Variag, which heroically fought against an entire enemy squadron. So this Variag fought so heroically that it ended up scuttling itself in the Lyman, but even then, it couldn't manage to sink itself properly. The Japanese salvaged it and successfully used it in their own navy. The mood at the Russian court before this short victorious war was one of overconfidence and bravado. Quote, "We who defeated Napoleon, should we really be afraid of some monkeys? Does this rhetoric sound familiar? We who defeated Hitler, should we really be afraid of some Ukrainians?
We thought in a real war we'd defeat Ukraine in 2 days. Why fight them? For God's sake, it's Ukraine. They suppressed those firing points we were discussing during the commercial break.
In the end, the great maritime superpowers suffered a crushing defeat in just 1 year. Despite having an enormous advantage in ships, the Russian fleet once again acted cowardly and without initiative, hiding in the harbors of Port Arthur and Vladivostok. The Japanese completely dominated at sea. The Russian invincible squadron was sunk not in open battle, but right in the harbor. The Japanese captured the heights near Port Arthur and, like at a shooting range, shot up all the ships. They might have even won the teddy bear. Incredibly, even in this truly dire situation, the brave Russian sailors did not venture out to sea and preferred to turn their ships into sieves rather than engage in a direct fight. The samurai put a decisive end to this war at the historic Battle of Tsushima. The Russian pseudo-empire sent the Baltic Squadron to the vast Pacific Ocean to help their helpless fleet. It sailed there for a whole 8 months, only to be destroyed in a single day. Tsushima became a catastrophe for Russia and an indelible stain on its reputation. The Japanese sank 21 Russian ships, captured another 7, and entire warships surrendered. Back then, Russians still didn't know that they supposedly never surrender. They just didn't have television yet.
The Russian person is always ready and willing to die for a higher noble cause.
After this defeat, Russia finally and irreversibly lost its status as a naval power, abandoned its oceanic strategy, and returned to the strategy of terrorizing its land neighbors. Defeat in the war led to the first revolution of 1905.
The losses were enormous. 50,000 dead. The economy can't cope. The army doesn't know how to fight, and frankly doesn't want to.
Nothing changed in World War I. The Russian Black Sea Fleet once again totally outmatched the Turkish fleet. But the command, spoiler alert, once again didn't dare to take decisive action. As a result, the German fleet came to the Turks' aid. Well, fleet is a bit of an overstatement. Just 2 ships, the cruiser Goeben and the cruiser Breslau. After that, the orcs didn't even dare leave their ports. Just 2 German cruisers managed to keep the entire Imperial fleet at bay. And all because the technological gap was staggering. For example, the Russians could only counter a single Goeben with their entire squadron. But even with the whole squadron, they were afraid to attack. So it's safe to say that, in addition to technological backwardness, there was also a lack of morale and willpower.
I'm not truly a coward, but I am quite afraid.
After the fall of the Russian Empire, the Black Sea Fleet raised Ukrainian flags. And those ships that didn't want to join Ukraine fled to Novorossiysk. And on the 18th of June 1918, following a fine Russian naval tradition, they scuttled themselves. And this was already the 2nd time in the history of the heroic Black Sea Fleet. Not every fleet can boast of a double suicide.
I get it, that's what it is. What? A group suicide.
During World War II, Russian naval commanders finally burned out completely. In 1941, the Soviet Navy consisted of 1 battleship, 5 cruisers, 17 destroyers, and 47 submarines. They were opposed by the Romanian Armada, which included 4 destroyers and 2 submarines. And the Soviets were defeated. When they tried to storm the port of Constanza, the ships came under fire from coastal batteries, panicked, and while trying to escape, ran into a minefield. As a result, the Black Sea Fleet lost its flagship. Guess 3 times what the name of that cruiser was? That's right, Moskva. It turns out that sinking the Moskva in the Black Sea is a long-standing tradition.
The missile cruiser Moskva sank while being towed to its destination in stormy conditions due to hull damage sustained from a fire caused by the detonation of ammunition. This was reported by the Russian Ministry of Defense. Earlier, Ukrainian authorities stated that their armed forces had struck the cruiser Moskva with the latest Neptune anti-ship missiles.
After that, the Soviet Black Sea Fleet no longer conducted major military operations. Later, it was destroyed by German aviation. Today, the Russian fleet is living out its final days. The shameful history of this entity is ending in agony and convulsions. Ukraine, despite not having its own fleet but possessing bright minds, courage, and new technologies, unblocked the Black Sea, sank a third of the entire Russian Black Sea Fleet, and drove the remnants to Novorossiysk and partially trapped them in the Sea of Azov. Now our drones are already striking the enemy in Novorossiysk as well.
That's right! I didn't make it in time. The sound should be on already. Where? Where's the sound?
There's nowhere left for the occupiers to run. So we're waiting for the third and final self-scuttling of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. Before our eyes, Ukrainian defense forces are changing the entire concept of naval warfare. We are the first country to use combat naval drones on a large scale. They are used in tandem with aerial drones. And this advanced weapon is a completely Ukrainian development. Magura drones are now the true rulers of the seas. Small, maneuverable, and surgically effective. The era of large, unwieldy ships is becoming a thing of the past, and Ukrainian combat experience is now being closely studied all over the world.
The clear fact that leading military powers are taking important cues from the Magura speaks for itself.
Along with the Magura at the recent Istanbul exhibition, the Turkish authorities quickly copied it and subsequently showcased their very own naval drone, which is practically an exact copy of ours.
And what about the pseudo-great, the pseudo-naval, the pseudo-power then? Their modern fleet is best represented by its flagship, the aircraft-carrying cruiser Admiral Kuznetsov, better known as the Floating Rusty Grill. All the adventures of this ship are best shown to the music from the Benny Hill Show. Right now, it's undergoing yet another round of repairs and, by all appearances, will never return to active duty. And that's all because it is literally rusted through.
This ship was specifically designed to operate in mid-latitudes in the vast Atlantic Ocean, and it was absolutely never meant for permanent deployment in the harsh Arctic latitudes. That's precisely where all its significant problems truly started, where all its critical issues genuinely began. In some unfortunate places, the hull has rusted so badly that the ship might not even be able to reliably stay afloat.
The story of Russia's only aircraft carrier, which is supposed to keep all of NATO in fear, is actually quite fascinating. In 1991, Russia literally stole it from Ukraine. After the declaration of independence, a resolution was passed in Kyiv to subordinate all military formations stationed on the territory of Ukraine to the newly formed state. At that time, the Admiral Kuznetsov was undergoing trials near Feodosia and in fact became the property of Ukraine. Leonid Kravchuk even sent a telegram to the ship's commander ordering him to remain at anchor in Sevastopol. But Russians wouldn't be Russians if they didn't steal. A whole Russian vice admiral arrived on the ship and ordered it to flee the Black Sea. Who could have thought back then that after this theft, such karma would await the Admiral Kuznetsov? Now, the only aircraft carrier of the Russian Federation isn't a warship, it's a meme and a laughingstock. They managed to steal it, but never learned how to use it.
The ship has been under repair since 2017. Right now, it's being worked on in Murmansk, but without any success. By the way, during the course of these repairs, this is already at least the third accident on the ship. In 2019, there was also a fire on board the Admiral Kuznetsov, which was undergoing repairs in the docks of the Zvezdochka plant in Murmansk. And in 2018, the ship suffered a 5-meter hole when a floating dock collapsed onto it during repairs.
That makes it all the more ironic since the fleet has always been something sacred for the Kremlin. Russians watched as the big players played at sea, and they wanted that too, to catch up with and surpass Britain and the USA. That's why even the smallest achievements were praised to the skies, while defeats were embellished in defeats worthy of Hercules. And nothing has changed to this day. The Kremlin uses the fleet as a carrot of greatness. He created the illusion of a superpower for his serfs. On the front, thousands are dying in meat grinder assaults. The wives of the mobilized are wailing, and the ruble is falling. Zelensky is holding a peace summit. So what needs to be done? Exactly. Show the masses the greatness of the fleet.
Comrade Supreme Commander-in-Chief, the ships have successfully completed state trials. They are ready for the flag-raising ceremony. Permission to proceed?
Permission granted. Paradoxically, it works. It's a proven fact. Russians don't care about their own lives, well-being, or their children's future. The main thing is for Mother Russia to dominate the seas and oceans. Well, at least on television.
Come on, seriously. 2 powerful nuclear submarines have officially joined the formidable Russian Navy. What could possibly be better or more impressive than that? Honestly, take a moment and ask yourself this profound question, and then truly consider your answer. What could genuinely make a Russian heart happier, more proud, and utterly content?
I would like to remind you that this video is created for entertainment purposes and contains elements of satire and irony. All facts and events are presented in a hyperbolized or exaggerated form to convey a comedic or dramatic effect. Our goal is not to mislead, but to highlight humor. Please take it with a smile.